A silent coup has just taken place inside the walls of Buckingham Palace, executed with surgical precision by Prince William himself, and it has sent shockwaves through the entire British monarchy. The world thinks the royal family is navigating a standard transition of power, but behind closed doors, a brutal internal war has been triggered by an incident so vicious it has permanently redrawn the lines of the crown. And the catalyst wasn't a political dispute or a financial scandal, it was a devastating verbal attack that left William's youngest son, Prince Louis, in complete emotional distress during a family gathering at Balmoral Castle. This wasn't a minor playground squabble or a scraped knee. According to palace insiders who witnessed the confrontation, the remarks directed at the young prince were described as stunningly vicious and deliberately destructive. What makes this betrayal truly horrifying is that it didn't come from an outsider or a random guest on the estate. It came from within the blended family itself, allegedly delivered by a granddaughter of Queen Camilla who targeted the boy when he was completely defenseless. The words chosen weren't just cruel, they were weaponized insults specifically designed to inflict the maximum psychological damage possible, targeting not only Louis, but launching a bitter assault on the reputation of his mother, Catherine, before taking an even darker turn by drawing painful comparisons to the tragic and complicated life of his late grandmother, Princess Diana. While a child of Louis's age couldn't possibly grasp the complex historical weight of those references, he instantly felt the pure venom behind them. Witnesses reported the young prince broke down completely, his entire body shaking as he ran sobbing to his mother, shattering the peaceful silence of the Scottish Highlands with the sound of genuine heartbreak. Before we reveal the chilling details of Catherine's immediate reaction and the brutal protocol William activated next, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us here at Crown Watch so you never miss an insider breakdown of the real dynamics shifting behind the palace walls. It wasn't just Prince Louis's tears that froze the palace staff in place that afternoon. It was the terrifying transformation on Catherine's face. She didn't scream, she didn't storm over to demand answers, and she didn't display any of the explosive anger you would naturally expect from a mother witnessing her child being emotionally ambushed. Instead, witnesses described something far more unsettling. Her expression became entirely cold, fixed, and possessed by an unshakable control that felt as though the temperature in the room had suddenly dropped 10 degrees. One person nearby noted that it wasn't the absence of emotion that caused alarm, but the presence of a fierce, blinding rage being actively held back. Catherine chose not to react in public, but behind closed doors away from the prying eyes of the household. She engaged in a private conversation with her husband that palace insiders are now calling the absolute defining moment of this entire crisis. Inside a quiet room at Balmoral, the Prince and Princess of Wales held a tense, emotionally charged meeting that has fundamentally altered the balance of power within the monarchy forever. Catherine did not approach William with frantic anger. Instead, she looked at her husband with an unblinking, uncompromising directness and laid out the total, historical failure of the royal institution to protect Princess Diana. She spoke plainly about how Diana wasn't just hounded by the external media, but was deeply wounded by the institutional apathy, whispered conflicts, and personal malice inside the royal fold itself. Then, Catherine made her stance explicitly clear, telling William that she would never allow history to repeat itself with their own children, not George, not Charlotte, and absolutely not Louis. She vowed to shield them from the psychological warfare and dynastic strains that had fractured William's own childhood, no matter what it took. This conversation unlocked a deep-seated fear that Prince William has spent his entire adult life trying to manage and compartmentalize. The breakdown of his parents' marriage and the devastating loss of his mother are not just distant memories for the future king. They are the core elements that shaped his identity. When Catherine voiced his deepest nightmare out loud, the incident stopped being about a single cruel comment from a step-relative and turned into a horrific vision of a future he had sworn to prevent his own children being used as collateral damage in a toxic family power struggle. In that exact moment, the traditional royal survival mechanism of remaining silent, the old principle of never complaining and never explaining, was recognized not as a shield, but as an active danger. The very next morning, the entire atmosphere at Kensington Palace shifted to a state of steely, deliberate purpose. Senior aides were abruptly summoned to a closed-door meeting. Movement in specific corridors was tightly restricted, and communication links were heavily monitored, with some reports even indicating that personal mobile devices were temporarily confiscated to prevent any leaks. This wasn't preparation for a public relations statement. It was the mobilization for an internal war. Legal advisors, constitutional experts, and senior protocol officials were quietly brought into the room. And when William walked in, he didn't look like a grieving father, he looked like a clinical commander. He carried a comprehensive briefing packet containing a disciplined, absolute, and brutal response to the attack on his family. This strategy, which palace officials began referring to with chilling precision as the eraser mandate, was designed to surgically remove Queen Camilla's extended family from any and all associations with the official, ceremonial, and public life of the British monarchy. Every single avenue for their public visibility was systematically examined and permanently deleted. Future invitations to state banquets were ruled out. Appearances on the iconic Buckingham Palace balcony were permanently taken off the table, and any participation in traditional ceremonial duties or honorary positions was completely withdrawn. Long-serving courtiers were left stunned, not by the severity of the decision, but by the terrifying composure with which William executed it. There was no shouting, no visible flash of anger, just cold, non-negotiable instructions delivered with absolute calm. The staff tasked with carrying out the orders understood instantly that this was not a temporary measure to soothe hurt feelings, but a permanent strategic realignment imposed by the man who will one day rule the entire institution. What truly shocked the palace establishment was that William completely bypassed the traditional hierarchy, refusing to ask for King Charles's permission or even consult him on the matter. He simply set the machinery of his own Kensington Palace household into motion, putting the eraser mandate into immediate effect. King Charles was not officially notified until the new reality had already been established, receiving the news in the form of a formal letter. While the tone of the document was highly polite and strictly observed all the required honorifics and gestures of allegiance to the sovereign, the content was an absolute declaration of fact. The door to negotiation, compromise, or reversal had been slammed shut before the king even knew the issue was on the table, placing Charles in an impossible position between his furious wife, whose family had just been permanently demoted, and his heir, who was wielding authority in an unprecedented way. Queen Camilla reportedly demanded that Charles intervene immediately to veto the decree and reassert the traditional hierarchy, leading to intense, passionate arguments behind the scenes. Yet, King Charles chose not to interfere. Weighed down by his ongoing health struggles and a profound fatigue from years of relentless family scandals, Charles made a coldly realistic calculation. He recognized that the practical and emotional center of gravity within the monarchy has officially shifted away from him and toward William and Catherine, who hold the overwhelming support of the public. Starting an open power struggle with his popular son over a defended child was a battle the king could not win, and his inaction served as a quiet, definitive green light to the silent coup. For decades, an immense public relations campaign had been fought to integrate Camilla and her children into the royal fabric to present the image of a modern, blended family. But visibility in the royal world is directly tied to status, and the line between personal courtesy and institutional standing had become dangerously blurred. The Balmoral incident effectively detonated this underlying tension, bringing a brutal conclusion to a conflict that had been simmering for years, signaling the definitive end of the blended crown experiment. Two separate courts have now emerged within the palace system, the court of the King and Queen at Buckingham Palace, and the true centre of power at Kensington and Windsor under the Waleses. Palace staff are already shifting their allegiances, recognizing that the future of the monarchy belongs to a leaner, highly guarded operation focused strictly on the direct Windsor line of succession. While the public knows William for his warmth, charity work, and modern parenting style, the execution of the eraser mandate has revealed the unyielding, fierce intensity that lies beneath his public persona. What happened at Balmoral merged the relatable father and the future monarch into a single force, providing a clear preview of his future reign. When the news of the consequences began to filter out, public support for William and Catherine surged globally, with archival images of Princess Diana fiercely protecting her young sons trending across social media, drawing an unmistakable line from the trials of the past to the strength of the present. The narrative has transformed from mere palace intrigue into a resonant story of a son breaking cycles of generational trauma to protect his own children. William sent a flawless message through the institution without ever making a single public speech, proving that in the future reign of King William, the emotional well-being of his family takes absolute precedence over tradition, politics, and the crown itself.